All right, guys. Man, it has been a minute since I've live streamed. So give me just a second here to settle in and wait for some people to get here, and then I also need me to make sure my audio is working. Here we go. All right, guys. All right. Looks like it's working. All right, guys. Go ahead and drop your name in the chat. I know some of you have been to these live streams before. Today we're going to be covering a really cool thing that I wanted to do just in geometry nodes. It's a little bit in its infancy, but I'll just show you kind of like what it is. So as you can see, I'm kind of playing my timeline here, and I have this cup here with basically like a moving liquid in it. And you can see as I move the cup, the liquid kind of stays even with, I guess, where it would be with gravity. Now I worked on this before with just some Boolean stuff with modifiers, but in this case, we're actually going to be using geometry nodes to do this. Yeah, so it has been a while. The reason I haven't streamed in a while, guys, just so you know, is because I recently had a baby. Very exciting stuff. It has taken up a lot of my time, and I did miss Blender, so I wanted to get back to it at least for today. So I just want to go over kind of like the node setup for this. We're going to try to recreate it from scratch, but I'll just give you like a quick glance at that. So we'll go over to geometry nodes. We'll go ahead and zoom out here. Just ignore these nodes. Okay, so at first glance, it might seem like a lot, but I'm just going to break it down so we can kind of understand what's happening here, and then we'll go ahead and construct this together. It may take a few little tries, some trial and error here, just because I just did this before live streaming. So right up here at the top, and you guys might want to screenshot this kind of as we go. This is our water animation, so this is actually going to be like cutting into our object. So right here, you can kind of see that we have our water animated. That's being driven by our scene time and a noise texture. So it's pretty simple actually if you really like break down what's happening, but there's a few steps we need to get in between to actually make this happen. We also have our base water, which is actually just a cube that we're cutting into. We have our cup, which is procedurally generated, and then a bunch of mesh booleans, things like that. This stuff over here was something I was going to use for the scene time. So let me hide this so I can show you. So right here, these are just text overlays, just strings. We don't really need all this stuff. This was just for something I was experimenting with. Do I remember you from my aerodynamic stream? Yes, I do. And yes, I am back. Yes, so we're going to hop right into this. So basically, we'll just start completely fresh. I'll somehow try to provide this file to you guys. But again, just showing you, we have an empty that's controlling our cup. You see, as I rotate it, we can... Just go down here. As I rotate it, you can see that the liquid kind of stays there. And another cool feature of this is that we can actually go in here. We can adjust where the liquid is itself. Now, it's not perfect. Like I said, it's a little bit glitchy. You can see we're getting some glitches up here on the top. But once you see how it works, it'll make a lot more sense. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump right into it. I'm just going to go ahead and open up a brand new document, and we're going to talk about how we'll construct all this together. I may have to go back and forth between the two documents, but we'll go ahead and start from scratch. All right, so I am in a brand new document. Again, I am in Blender. Which Blender version is this? This is the latest version, 4.5.2. I just downloaded it the other day. Not too many huge differences there. It's a few updates for like geometry nodes and things like that. But for our purposes, we're just going to go ahead and add a single vert here. Tab out of edit mode. Now you can't really see it because it's so small. It's in the center. We will hop over to geometry nodes, click on a new geometry node setup, and the very first thing we're going to do is let's go ahead and create our cup. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a cylinder. We'll go ahead and add that in. We'll plug it right in, and there's our cup. Now we want to go ahead and delete that top face, so go ahead and click delete geometry. We want to delete the top face there. In this case, we don't want to delete the point. We just want to delete the top face. Now this is kind of our simplified version of a cup. One of the other things we want to do here is we want to extrude the mesh to kind of give the cup some thickness. Now you can see it's offset all of our faces. In this case, you don't want it to offset the individual faces, just the whole thing. And then you can kind of slim it down a little bit. Something like that. Looks pretty good. Now, what I like to do as I set all of this up is I will group all of this together. So go ahead and right click, and then you can click join in new frame. If we pop this panel out, we can actually rename this to cup. I'm also going to just give this a quick save so we have it. I'll go ahead and name it something super professional. That looks good. Make sure you spell everything correctly. All right, so we have our cup. One of the next things we're going to need is a join geometry node. We're going to be using quite a few of these as we go. Let's go ahead and create our liquid. Now, I'm just going to use a cube for our liquid. We're going to go ahead and join this right here. So right now we have our cube. Now, you want your cube to kind of go past your cup, if that makes sense. So I'll just give this like a 6x6 size. And then we want to go ahead and, oopsies. We want to go ahead and make sure it also kind of fills the bottom as well. Now, right now it's covering everything, which is okay because we are going to use a transform geometry node here. All right, and what we want to do is just transform this so that it's just a little bit under that line. Now, this right here is your water level, and we'll go over, like I said, how all this works, but this is going to be a really cool thing here. So let's go ahead and take our cylinder, and we're going to use this to cut out the part of the liquid that we want to use. So I'm going to do a mesh boolean. Go ahead and pop that right here. Go ahead and plug your cylinder into the other side. And for this specific one, I think we want, what do we want? Intersect. I'm pretty sure we want intersect here. There we go. So what intersect does is it sort of, well, it makes them intersect in a way where you just get that liquid. And again, I can adjust the level of my liquid right here. An easy way to see this is in your wireframe view. You can see that, I'll just click this to select it, but you can see as I lower and raise this transform value, that's our level of our liquid. That's where the liquid sits. All right, so again, we can assign materials to both these later, but right now we have a liquid, we have a cup, and now you're probably thinking, well, okay, this is cool, Kenny, but how do I actually like get those wavy patterns in the liquid? So right here, this is our liquid, right? So let's go ahead and join these three nodes. Let's go ahead and right click, join a new frame. We're gonna call this base liquid, just to kind of keep things simple. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to cut into this again, but this time we're going to cut into it with a different cube. So let's go up here. Let's add a cube. Okay. And I'm going to join the geometry again. Now we're going to have a new cube. We're going to also transform that geometry as well. And we're just going to bring this up so we can kind of see what we're working with here. We'll probably do the same thing with the scale. We'll scale it out this way. Actually, you can do it on either side. Something like that, maybe just like a 5x5. It's totally fine. We'll come back to the vertices. The higher the vertice count, basically the higher the resolution of our simulation. So we have a cube, we have transform geometry. Next thing we want to do is we want to set the position up, and we want to set it to a noise texture. See if I remember what I'm doing here. We'll join all these into a new frame as well. And we'll call this animated liquid cutter. And that'll make sense because we're going to use this to cut into everything else. Go ahead and give us some more room here. All right, so we have our noise texture. We want to plug this into the offset. Now, you'll notice so far it kind of looks a little weird, so I'm going to go ahead and raise these vertices to 10 each. Now you'll kind of start to see our noise texture come into play here. And in order to make this like really work well, we're actually only going to offset the Z, so I'm going to do combine XYZ. We're only going to offset the Z value here. And you can kind of see we're already starting to get this kind of like wavy pattern, which is super awesome. But one of the things we're going to want to do is we're going to want to smooth this out more. So again, the more vertices we have, the better. You can do 20 by 20 by 20, whatever you want. And then I'll go ahead and I'll just do subdivision surface here right after set position. Now you can see it's nice and smooth. And we can adjust the scale here as well, as you guys can see. I'm going to quickly set our end frame to 60 so you can kind of see what's going on here. And right now our noise texture, we're going to switch that to 4D. You can see this W value is really what's going to ultimately make things look like they're moving. So how do we control this? Well, let me go ahead and pop my timeline up here. Right now, if I press play, nothing's going to happen. But if we use our scene time, we can actually animate the frames here. And you can see it's way too fast, right? But it is moving, which is great. So we're just going to go ahead and dumb that down with some math, which is contradictory because you'd think math would make things more complicated. We're just going to multiply it by a small value, like 0.01. And now you can see we have this wavy pattern, right? Which is really cool because we can now take this and we can cut into our liquid down here, right? So how do we do this? Well, very first thing I want to do is I actually want to kind of raise the size of this a little bit. And I'm going to go to my side view so I can kind of see a little bit better. And I can just kind of lower this down here until I think it's going to intersect. And I'll double check in wireframe view to see where it's at. Right about there is good. You guys can see we have the line and then we have our pattern here. So this is where the magic comes into play, right? So this looks really good. I'm also going to shade it smooth. And then we're going to cut into our original base liquid. Let's kind of do this. All right, so we have our base liquid. And before we join everything back together, we're going to take our block of now moving liquid. We're going to cut it into the other one. So let's use another mesh boolean. And this time we're going to use the difference. And we're going to go ahead and see if I can unplug this other one. There we go. And just like that, now you can see, now it's not perfect because we got to adjust a few settings, but our liquid is moving. How awesome is that? I know, it's pretty awesome. And now we can go back here and we can kind of adjust these different values. Like if we want the scale to be bigger, the detail level, and then we can also adjust, again, the amount of vertices that we get. The more vertices, like the more detail you'll have. And if you still think it's too fast, which I do, I'll dumb it down to a little bit less, right? And you can really play with this value to get what you want. But right now we have a contained liquid, which is awesome. Now you can see when I rotate, it kind of like doesn't do what we want it to do. The whole point is that when we rotate the cup, we want to make sure that the liquid stays where it is and it stays level with gravity, right? Is basically what we're trying to do. So I'm going to lower this down a little bit. Let's go ahead and try to rotate the cup. We're going to need a transform geometry value here. Now, right now, if we rotate the cup, you'll see like some weird stuff is happening, right? The cup is rotating, which is great because we only want to rotate the cup, but you'll see that our like base liquid is not rotating with it. So I'm going to show you how we're going to do this. We're going to add in an empty, and we'll just add in like an empty. You can do whatever you want. I'll just do an empty sphere. I'll scale that up a little bit. And then click back on your geometry node setup. Go ahead and drag that empty into here. And we're going to utilize the rotational value of the empty to control our cup. So right now, if we rotate, now it rotates the cup. Perfect. We also wanted to rotate our now booleaned liquid. So we're just going to go ahead and add another transform geometry here. Go ahead and add that right after that boolean, and just to check that it's working, it is. You can see that we can now rotate that. However, we don't want to just rotate that part. We actually only want the base liquid. So let's go ahead and transform that geometry just to verify. That's not what I wanted. I want this. There we go. Okay, so right here in between the base liquid and the mesh, if I rotate, yep, you can see that it's working now. If I rotate just this part here, you can see that the liquid's now updating. But we want it to rotate with our empty, so we'll go ahead and plug in our rotation from the empty. That's the location, whoops. We'll go ahead and plug in the rotation into the rotation, and now, if we rotate, you can see it works. Now you'll notice it kind of breaks right here. The reason it's breaking right there is because the size of our cube, which is this cube up here. Now, sometimes what I like to do when I'm testing out new geometry node setups is I'll actually go ahead and just add a switch. And I will just join the geometry one more time with that switch. That way I can turn this on, I can see where my cube is, and then when I'm done testing, I can hide it again. Now let's see where it is right now. Right now it's right about there, so it's not, that's not the issue here. The issue here is, why are we getting like a weird cutoff? Let me just double check that again. We're getting a weird cutoff here because it's not low enough. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna raise the height of this to 3, and we're gonna raise it just a little bit. So again, this is gonna take a little bit of experimenting. That should work. And now we'll hide it back, and we should be good to go. And to make sure everything's working, I'm gonna rotate my wireframe here. Sorry, my empty. Now you can see it is working. Again, it will break, which is okay because it's how we built it. It will break when you turn it to the side. Now, if you had a closed shape, then it would just be like a little capsule. That would work too. Again, this should work with almost any, like it would probably even work with like the monkey head. I don't know, it should work with anything. And what's cool, what I really like about this is now this is like procedural, right? So you can adjust the various factors. So let's go ahead and set that up with the group input so that we can actually adjust all this stuff, and then I'll show you guys how to add your materials. So let me just go ahead and organize this a little bit better. I feel like that looks pretty good. We have our animated liquid, our base liquid, and our cup. And you know what? For this, I'll place that right there. Perfect. All right. Now for the group input, I want to control two things. I want to control the height of the water, and I want to control the, I guess we can control the speed of the water, let me think. let's just do just the height for right now. The height of the water is controlled by a couple of things. This is really the main thing right here. However, again, you can see that we're going to get messed up here if we go too high. So there really should be a minimum with the Z value. But right here, I want to combine X, Y, Z. And then it'll mess it up for a second, but we're just going to select the Z value from our geometry input here. And right here, I can now adjust the height. And if you guys want to label that, you can go into your group socket. Okay, you can scroll down and you just double click here and we'll just call this height of liquid. And then as you can see on the right hand side, I can now adjust the height of the liquid. And just to show you that this works pretty well, I'll reset my rotation for my empty, click on this, and now you can see the height of the liquid is right here. We can adjust it however we see fit. Now remember, if you go too high, you're not gonna have that wave anymore because you're going past the original cylinder that we cut out. So for this, I'll just lower it a lot because I want to watch how this works. And now you can see it works pretty well. Now, obviously, it's not going to react to the velocity of how fast we rotate this cup, but I will tell you, this is a pretty cool effect, and I'm very happy with how this came out. And that's really like the tutorial right there. But why stop there? Let's go ahead and add some materials in because this is Blender after all, and I want to make this look like somewhat aesthetically pleasing. So let's add in a couple of spheres here. Now, most people will disagree with this method, but I don't care. The way I like to do it is I just add like a couple of spheres, and I just like to make these my material slots. I'm just going to quickly add an HDRI, get some basic lighting on this scene. It can be any HDRI you want. Now for our first material, let's just do our glass material. I'll just call this glass cup, and then I'll lower the roughness and we'll just keep it at 1.5. For the second one, we'll do glass again, but this time this is going to be our liquid. And just so we can see the liquid, I'll give it like a blue hint, 1.33 IOR. And now we can hide these two. We can go back to geometry nodes. This is the fun part. Now we can assign our materials. Now we know that our base liquid is right here and our cup is right here, so let's do a set material for our cup, and we'll give this the glass cup. Perfect. And we're also going to need, I'm just going to shade everything smooth at the end. Awesome. We'll come back to why this looks so weird. And then for our mesh boolean right here, this is going to be our liquid, so we'll set material, and we'll call this liquid. And if you look from the side, it is actually working. We have our liquid, and then we have our glass cup. The reason the cup looks so weird is because we don't have a lot of side segments or fill segments, so I'm going to set those both to 20. And now that'll correct the look of our cup. It's just giving it basically more geometry, and if you want to like look at what it's actually doing, you can go into wireframe mode, and you can see as I adjust the side segments, you can kind of see it as these loop cuts. As I adjust the fill segments, should be on the bottom. You don't really need too many on the bottom. That's fine. Remember, we cut off the top, right, and then we extruded it. So right now, it's looking pretty good. If we play it, we have a pretty good looking cup. All right, let's go into rendered view, and let's just set up like a little plane in here. All right, I'll scale this up. Let's give us some more room over here. Go back to layout view. All right, I'm just going to tab into edit mode here. I'm going to select this edge. I'm just going to bring it up, and you guys probably already know what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to give our scene like a little stage here. Perfect. All right, now for this, I'll probably just give this like a darker gray kind of color, maybe like a higher roughness. And yeah, let's just get a light on this and a camera, and let's just see how it looks, like how it reads in the scene. Let's do an area light. I'm just going to give this a power of like 1,000. And then for the spread, I'll just do like 80. I'll bring it off to the side here. Something like that. Looks pretty cool. And then for the shape, I'll use disk. Pretty cool. Yeah, and again, we can take our empty, right? And we can rotate this. And then we can click on our cup and we can adjust the liquid height. Bring it up a little bit. And it's looking pretty cool. Again, it's not perfect, right? But this is a good starting point for like if you want to get this type of effect. And what's cool is it's animated. So like when I press play, you can see the liquid inside is currently animated, and I think it looks really good. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is more of like a proof of concept, but there's your liquid. Again, I press play. It's nice and animated. It looks really good. Turn the denoiser on, see if it looks decent. And look, we can take our empty, we can rotate it, and our cup stays okay. Now, again, we're getting a little bit of a glitch here. The reason this glitch happens is because, remember, the height of the liquid, I guess we could adjust it dynamically based on the rotation. Let me think for a second. We might be able to improve this a little bit, because right now the problem is that the waves we created are still too high, right? Because we would have to go back in here, we would have to go over here, we'd have to adjust the height of the liquid, right? But then you kind of break that illusion. So that's something we could look at. But right now, I'm going to reset it. I'm just going to briefly add a camera here. Let's go ahead and drag this camera out here. Let's go to the top-down view so we can kind of see what's going on. I like to switch views a lot with my camera, like kind of see what works best. I feel like this is a good view right here. We'll just bring our camera down. So far, so good. I'll give myself a 100mm lens, and we'll do 1920 by 1080. Bring it back a little bit, bring it up, and then we'll go ahead and adjust our pass part out. And I still think I'm not very happy with this color, this background. Let's make it more dramatic. And let's bring our camera off to the left a little bit. There we go. Cool. Okay, looking pretty good. Let's give this a little bit of rotation. Give it some like pizzazz here. There we go. Starting to look okay. I'm kind of going for like what the thumbnail looked like, kind of trying to get you guys as close as possible to what I had there. Again, you're going to get a few glitches here and there. It's not going to be perfect, but for the most part, we have a pretty solid like foundation for what this is and like could look like. I know it's not perfect, but it's a good starting point, at least to give us an idea of like how we can start to think about geometry nodes in this way. Even though this isn't a physics simulation, I still think it looks really nice. And remember, the setup isn't too crazy. The reason my old setup looks so weird is because I had so many extra things in there that I was going to do. As of right now, the height of the liquid, we could do like a little math and try to figure out like where the best height fits, but I feel like we did a pretty good job here. I'm pretty happy like with the result. Let's experiment with it a little bit though. Yeah, you can see again when we rotate, kind of updates. Now you're probably wondering like, how could you make it so that when you rotate it, the liquid kind of like gets this velocity from the cup? Theoretically, that's possible. I just didn't go that far into it. But if you wanted to do something like that, like let me just brainstorm for a minute, you could, I'll just use the annotation tool, even though I never, ever use the annotation tool. Here, we'll zoom in and have this playing while this happens. Oh, also, one of the things I like to do, I'm going to do frame selected here. There we go. Much better. All right, so let's just say, can you annotate while this is, you can. Okay, let's just say we have our liquid, right? Everything looks cool. If you were to take the scene time, oh, I guess you can't. All right, we'll just pick one frame. You can't draw while it's playing. I didn't know that. All right, scene time, and then you like, what is speed? Distance over time, right? So you just do like rotation divided by scene time, and that should give you like the velocity, or I guess like the speed of how fast the cup is rotating. And based on that, you could adjust your like noise texture, but that's where you get into like simulation nodes and things like that. I do think that this is like pretty good, but we could probably get like, I think we could raise the, let me just see something here. I do think we could get rid of X-ray mode real quick. For the liquid, we could raise the subdivision count to 2. That's a little bit better. You can see the frame rate's much lower, but it does look at least a little bit better, especially in rendered view, I'm guessing. Yeah, it looks a little bit better in rendered view as well. Someone said this is really cool. Do you remember me? True, awesome stuff. Hello, this is really cool. Thank you guys, I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a minute since I've live streamed. So at this point, like we kind of went through what I wanted to for this specific liquid animation. So I think at this point we can kind of take some user suggestions. I have a little bit of time before I have to go. So if you guys want, we can kind of do like a free-for-all here. You guys can let me know, you know, something you want to experiment with or just something you're curious about, I'm going to go ahead and save this and just look through some of my old projects while you guys drop a comment. But I'm open to ideas, or I can just kind of go into, there was this other project I was working on. This was a cool one, kind of like a styrofoam shader type thing. I was working on different densities here. Let's see. Yeah. This was sort of like an object fill. Nothing too crazy. Can you make the liquid pour out of the glass? Monica, that is a great question. That is a whole different thing. I mean, doing that would be like, I would just use physics for that at that point. Trying to do that in geometry nodes would be an absolute like migraine. It's not to say it's not possible, but if anyone can do it, it's probably like Default Cube or who else? Maybe Blender Guru is good with geometry nodes like that. Although I haven't seen him do a lot of stuff in geometry nodes. Making like a liquid like pour out of something, that's, I mean, we're talking like computational fluid dynamics, which is a whole nother like realm, right? It's just, yeah. Again, not saying it's not possible, just it's a whole different beast. Oh, this is a cool one. I forgot about this one. Do you guys remember this by any chance? This one was from an old live stream, but I'm trying to remember like what was even the deal with this. We were talking about animating things with simulation. Where is it? Simulation nodes. Yeah, there it is. Simulation nodes, and talking about how like you can kind of get this like expansive effect. I think we did a cell division effect too. But this was a fun one. The liquid pouring out of a glass is just, it's intense. Not saying it's not possible. Yeah, this one was cool. Let me try to remember how this worked. Okay, so yeah, we basically took something, multiplied its size over time with the scene time, and then we updated its index. What else did we do? Yeah, and I guess we just gave it a texture. That was pretty cool. So simple, but like it worked really well. All right, let's check a couple other projects out. Totally forgot about that project. Oh my gosh, we made, so this file right here is called I'm Going Insane, and this was the one where we made a procedural car, which is just like, let me go back to this, because I remember when we made this, like, hold on a second, let me just see something. So, does anybody happen to remember this one? Because this one was so funny. I'm going to go into geometry nodes. I'm pretty sure what I did is I just gave it I gave you the ability to just generate a random car with a seed. Yep. So what this does is each time you click generate, it just generates like another random car. And it's not perfect, right? But it's kind of funny. Like it'll generate like different size headlights and taillights and wheels. Actually, I never changed the size of the wheels, but how funny is this? Like you just don't know what you're going to get. It is not perfect, but it is, man, is this a funny one. Like that actually looks kind of like a car. I know this is not related to the live, but what are your thoughts on the geometry field in Blender? Who it is for and what it's used for? The geometry field? What do you mean by that? That's awesome and hilarious. I know. It is pretty funny. When you say the geometry field, what exactly do you mean? Do you mean like geometry nodes, or do you mean any like a specific node within geometry nodes? Okay. Let me know though, because I would love to answer your question. I'm just not exactly sure what you mean. All right, let's see what else we have here. Oh, this was the cell expansion. We have that one. Let me see this one, cube expansion. I don't remember this one. Yeah, a little bit. It reminds me of Minecraft, kind of just like cubes expanding like randomly over time. Kind of cool. You could use it to like generate a random world. Geometry nodes. What do I think of geometry nodes? I love geometry nodes. It's funny. I used to be so like petrified of using geometry nodes, but now it's all I use. I used to just really be into shader nodes, but again, I don't know what it is. I just love geometry nodes now. Like I'm not afraid of them anymore. I kind of just I really did dive head first. Oh yeah, look at I remember this one. This was a cool one. Now this one where is the thing that I used to affect it? Where is it? Hold on. Plane simulation. Where is the, hold on. This is the wrong file. There's a file that I have where okay, I think it's this one. Yep. Oh my God. Forgot we did this. So that's a cool one. All right, so with this one, let me delete the keyframes real quick. So does anybody remember this one? This was a cool one. There is a tutorial on this, so I'm not going to cover it right now. But this one, basically, it moves things out of the way, and then they kind of come back together. It's like simple. It's a concept that's simple, but like watching it actually happen in real time is really cool. And I want to say I have, what's this? Oh, this is the gap around the object. Yeah, so cool. And I think, where's the time? I want to say this is the time that it bounces back. Let's see if I'm right about that. Okay, yeah, but hold on. Let's try that. Whoa. How cool is that? Now that's cool. Yeah, geometry nodes is great. I love geometry nodes. I'm always learning something new. I mean, obviously, because I just had a baby, it has been really busy around here, but it's not like there's not a day that goes by that I'm not thinking about like going back on Blender and finding out how to do something new. Which is why I just love, like, I don't know, I just love experimenting in Blender. Let's see what else I have for you guys. I have so many things on here. A lot of the stuff that I like to do is usually physics based, but some of it's not. Let me see this one. Oh, this one was we were filling objects with curves. Hold on. Surely there's one in here that like we didn't finish that like I should finish. Like it wasn't quite there, but it needs some modification. Let's see. Yeah, geometry nodes is absolutely by far one of my favorite things here. Now this is interesting. This isn't geometry nodes, but what's going on here? Let's try cycles. All right, for some reason it's working better in cycles. It should work in Eevee though. Hold on a second. Eevee's ain't no way that Eevee is like going slower than cycles right now. So here's what's really cool about this one. So this was you guys probably get the vibe from here, but basically what this was some dynamic paint, right? But we kind of created a I don't know, like an aerodynamic sort of simulation. I had never seen it used this way. I thought this was super creative when I came up with this. Is it accurate? Not necessarily, but you can kind of see like you can see these like interference patterns, right? Where is this stinking? Where is this other shape? There's a hidden shape here. Where's it? Oh, there it is. Let's get rid of this. So yeah, so you can see, just imagine like this is a rocket ship or something flying through the air, maybe like a bullet, and you can kind of see the path of this dynamic paint past it, right? Kind of gives you an idea of like how the air might affect it. Who is it for, and what can you use geometry nodes for? Geometry nodes is for everyone. You just have to be comfortable enough to kind of try it out. Also, I just wanted to show you guys, this is actually what this looks like from above, okay? And this is what it looks like without any objects. And it's just a wave. I would say geometry nodes is used for someone who really wants to make something that's like utility based on math and like procedural methods. Remember, geometry nodes is completely procedural. Like everything you do is like based on math and rules, and there's not many physics involved, but you can kind of create your own physics with geometry nodes. It's almost like its own coding language, but again, that's what shader nodes are too. Like you just kind of take one thing and then you modify it and you modify it again, and you just apply these rules and these restrictions to different objects, and you get a result that you're looking for. Geometry nodes is kind of like hard to describe what it even does. It basically allows you to modify a mesh, delete parts of a mesh. You can scale, rotate, duplicate parts of a mesh. I mean, there's so many things that you can do in geometry nodes. Your creativity is quite literally the limit. There's no, that's the best way I can explain it. Let's start a new project together. Yeah, it's kind of like programming. I'll just show you like a real quick example. I'll just add in a cube here. So I added in a cube, right? And right now we don't have any geometry nodes set up. But if I click new, now we have like the basics of what geometry nodes is. We have a group input, which is our cube, and we have group output, which is what you see after you do whatever you do with the cube. In this case, if we wanted to just like transform the geometry, it takes the cube and then this is like, it's almost like this is a filter that's applied to this object. So right now we can translate it, which means move it, right? We can rotate it like this, or we can scale it, right? So there's like different aspects that we can do with these things. And then just like anything else, what I love about geometry nodes is when you click and drag, right, you get this line, but it also gives you options of like what you can actually use with that socket. So I could just say combine XYZ. So right now, it's not going to translate anything unless I give it something to translate. Now, what's really cool about this is, let's just say you wanted it to move up 2 and over 1. So that's X and Z, right? I could just say like, let's do a value. So for X and Z, I want it to move the same amount at the same time. So now if I move this, you can see that I should get a diagonal, right? It's going to move diagonally. But if I want it to move twice as far on the X as it does on the Z, all I have to do is use some math. And I can multiply this value by 2. Now when I adjust this value, you'll see that let me just draw this because it's easier. You'll see that it's going to go like this rather than that. If we want it to go at this other angle, we can just keep the values the same. And now they'll go like that, right? But as soon as I multiply it by 2, it's going to move twice as far each time it moves up. So like you're basically just applying like rules to like what's happening, and that's really it. And then you can go here and you can say, oh, you know what? Instead of me messing with the value here, I would like our users to adjust the value. Oops. And so you can go to group input and you can plug this value in here. And then whatever value I choose on the right, which is, I don't know if you guys can see this, in my modifiers, this value is now linked to what we just created. So basically programming, at least that's how I look at it. And I could do the same thing with rotation. I could do the same thing with scale. And then you get into things that are like really interesting. So I could just go in here and I could say, you know what? I would like this torus to also make this box move somehow. So then I could go and I could drag the torus in here. And now I can access data about the torus. So I could just say, you know what? However the torus is rotated, I would like the cube to be rotated that exact same way. So now I'm accessing data from another object, which is our torus in this case, and I'm saying, you know what? Whenever I rotate this torus, I also want the cube to rotate as well. So I can now control whatever I want. You can see when I scale it, nothing happens, right? Because we're not accessing the scale. But as soon as I plug that scale in, I can also do the same here, right? I can scale it, I can rotate it. You could even link the scale to the rotation or the rotation to the scale. I mean, it's endless possibilities. But right now, the scale and the rotation are linked. And then the value of like where this thing is controlled by the user. Okay? Pretty interesting, in my opinion. Now, why would this be useful? Well, sometimes you want to be able to modify something without it being like destructive, which means we can go back on our changes. If I say, you know what, never mind, I don't want this to be rotated and scaled, I just get rid of that node and now it's back to normal, right? It's pretty cool. So there's a lot of fun things we can do with that. And geometry nodes is, I mean, it's incredible. There's so many things that you can do. It's funny because when they first came out with it, I think everyone was so overwhelmed and scared, and so was I. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to leave this to the experts. And now I feel like I'm starting to become an expert, like someone who is very comfortable with geometry nodes. And I think that's the way you have to be when you approach Blender, because it's just so complex. There's so much you can do with it. So just start building, right? Don't hesitate. If I ever want to know how to do something, I just look it up, right? Like if I wanted to know, this is a good example. Let's say I want to be able to duplicate this torus over and over and over again, right? How might I do that? Or like, what would my approach be? Because we know that if I want to do that in Blender right now, I go and I select the torus, I add an array modifier, if I can spell it, And then there it is, right? We can duplicate it as many times as we want. Perfect. Easy, right? But I don't know. Geometry nodes might be a better approach. Let's see why it could be a better approach. Let's go ahead and delete that. Let's go back to our cube. Now remember, we don't need to add our geometry nodes to the torus. We can access the torus within any other object. That's why geometry nodes are so powerful. So let's say, you know what? I don't want my cube anymore. In fact, I don't want anything here. Now my cube will disappear, right? Because there's no group output. Nothing's connected. This is still my cube, but you're not going to see it because these two aren't connected. So if I reconnect them, there's the cube. But this time I want to array my torus. So let's drag our torus in, right? And if I just plug this in here, well, there's our torus, right? It accesses the information that we're looking for. There it is. But how do we duplicate it over and over and over again? Well, you might think we'll use duplicate elements, right? Let me just go ahead and click that there, and we just duplicate it the amount of times that we want. But wait a second. What's happening here? Like, why is it not actually duplicating anything? Well, there's a different approach that I'm going to take. This approach right here is not the approach to take, in my opinion. What I would do instead is I would create a grid. Okay, I'll plug it in here. I'm also going to go to wireframe view so you can actually see what's going on. With this grid, I can decide the size of the grid. I can also decide how many vertices. And then what I can do is I can say mesh to points right here. And instead of the vertices, I'm going to choose the edges, okay? And I can also reduce this, right? So now I have two vertices, and on every edge, it's going to create a point, right? So let's try. There you go. You can do faces. That's fine too. Again, if we just plug this back in, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 faces. When we convert the mesh to points, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we can use instancing to get our array. So I'll simply put an instance on points. And then for the geometry that we're looking for, or the instance, I'll plug that in there. Now you'll see our torus is there, right? I'm going to go ahead and scale it down. I'm going to use a value node and plug that into the scale so it scales everything. And now you can see we have our array. But you're probably thinking, well, Kenny, that's great, but now we're stuck. We have five things, right? How do we adjust it? Well, you simply add more vertices. Or you can adjust the scale, which is basically the offset, okay? And now you can go ahead and increase the amount. Now, what's really cool about geometry nodes, and you guys probably already know that I'm going here next, is that we can now take this entire group, and we can take all these nodes, group them, and it's now a repeatable array. So what's cool about this is then you can plug any object into it, and this is now your array modifier within geometry nodes, right? It's pretty cool. Can you make a magnet so the torus repels the cube when it gets to a certain distance to the cube? Kind of. Yeah, you can. There's a node, I want to say it's called like distance to or something like that. So you can kind of do that, but it won't really react like physically, if that makes sense. You can kind of like push it away, but maybe not in a physically accurate way. Again, there's some things that I think physics is just better for in Blender, and then things like this might be more of a geometry nodes project, right? Whenever you're trying to get a physical effect like a magnet, I say just go with the actual physics world, rigid body physics. But what's cool here is, like I said, we can take this, let's see. I want to say we can group all of this. Now, I only want to group these things right here, okay? Actually, I want these to remain on the outside. Let's group this. And now look, we have group input and output. And now look, this right here is our array. So let's say we have another object in our scene, the monkey, right? We have our monkey. I'm just going to scale her down. Maybe we want the monkey to be our instance object for an array. And there you go. Look, I can just go back and forth. I can say, oh, I want our torus to be the array. Nope, I want our monkey to be the array. And if I want to scale it, I can scale it up. And then if I really want to access the distance in between, here's what's really cool. I can go ahead and I can adjust this right here, which is our distance. And now, look, I can adjust the amount, the scale, and where's the distance? I guess the distance is X. So we'll do that too. Okay, so we have the distance right here, right? The distance between the array. Sorry, the distance between each object is here. The length of the array is right there. And the amount or the scale of the object is right there. But again, these are instances, so they don't take up a lot of space, which is great. Yeah, the magnet thing is cool. I mean, magnets are easy to create with rigid body physics, so I could show you how to do that. That's pretty simple. But this is why geometry nodes is so powerful. Hey, I'm live streaming. Is it emergency?
No, but I'm on my way home and I'm trying to figure this out with Lauren and Phoebe.
Okay, what's up?
Well, I'm just telling you, I was on my way home and ETA4. I guess I'm gonna tell them to still come in. Obviously, I'm like very behind planning my day, but
Yeah.
I was just looking to talk to you about it.
Okay.
Solidarity and see if you're on board and
Yeah, I mean, I'm on board. I'm fine with it.
I guess I'll just tell them 4 and I'll be like right when I get home, and then we'll head over to my parents like around 5.
Yeah, that's fine. That works.
Yeah, I feel like I kind of messed up today. Like how much I planned.
No, you're fine. I get it.
You know, like we're gonna go to my parents. Like I gotta bring
Don't.
the grass back. We're not gonna be there by 4:30.
Yeah. Don't stress about that. Just tell them they can come over. I'll clean up the house.
Okay.
All right.
Do you think you have time to get the plans before, or now fix it all so like that's gonna delay everything too?
Yeah, if you really want me to, I can.
I mean, if you can.
Are they
But,
are they ready to pick up right now?
well, you just go and get them. So it's just like I actually have paperwork that says I need to go and get them.
All right, hold on. Let me stop the live. Hold on 1 second. I'm gonna stop my live stream.
Sorry.
It's fine. All right, guys. Listen, I got stuff I got to do. Life stuff. So I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. And if you have any comments, drop them.